Nutnfancy's review tabletop style of the Sig P226. This is part 3. Thanks for tuning in. Nutnfancy here. When I left in part 2, I kind of alluded to the fact in terms of reliability that I think maybe ever so slightly the Sig wins in reliability, whereas the Glock won in durability, maybe by a slight margin. Now, let me just caveat by what I'm saying here is because I am talking about very slim margins. Very slim margins. If you take a Glock 17, you take a Sig 226, both of the pistols being extremely well-engineered mechanical devices. They both have good magazines, not bent, deformed, weak springs. They've been treated well. They're not abused. They have the right parts in them, i.e. someone hasn't swapped out the factory parts. That's a very important thing. Sometimes if you see a Glock or a Sig bobble at your local range, you might want to ask the dude if he swapped the parts out. Supposedly, well, yeah, I put in a stronger wolf spring, you know, I changed the guide rod out, I read on the forums that's what you're supposed to do. Well, no it isn't. Pretty much with these two designs, I am definitely for leaving them, the critical portions of them, as is from the factory. I don't swap the guide rods out of the Glock 17, they're polymer, and I don't care. Gast and Glock designed them that way, and they work well that way. Same with the hollow guide rod in the Sig 226. I've never felt the need to swap it out for a full metal stainless steel one. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of people trying to make money off of you with you upgrading your guns to their components. And so they're going to run you the hard sell, and I don't buy it. Now, that being said, there's some non-critical things you can do, like you can see the owners put this decal grip on. He's outfitted a Glock 34 slide release, extended slide release. That's fine. That's totally a non-critical item that will not change the way the gun runs and its degree of reliability. But internal components, sometimes when you see either of these guns bobble at the range, a Glock, a Sig, try to find out what the history is if you can and see if the guy's dicked around with it. Chances are he has. As they come from the factory, they're very, very reliable. Now, the times I've seen a Glock jam are twice, and both of them were with an optics mount mounted on the polymer frame. The guy had an aim tech mount on it. And by the way, that guy was me, and it was a Glock 19, and I was in probably about 0 degrees Fahrenheit. In other words, it's frigidly cold in the northern United States, and I was popping rounds with that Glock 19, and it jammed twice. And I did have gloves on, so the question I had in my mind, did it jam because, you know, the slide came back and hicked up, you know, snagged my heavy winter gloves? Did I tweak the frame with a mount? I don't know, but I saw it jam, and it happened twice. And I would think, to be fair, it was probably due to the frame being tweaked somewhat by that aim tech mount and also the glove. But who knows for sure? I mean, really, who knows? The fact remains I saw a Glock jam, and I have to reveal that because of my reviewing integrity demands it. I've never seen a Sig jam, ever. And I fired this gun in very cold conditions many times. Not this gun, but a Sig. Never seen it jam. That's all I can say. Now, I'm sure that someone somewhere has seen Sig jams. I've read it before. Hey, if I've read it, it's got to be true, right? No. But I'm sure it has happened somewhere. These are mechanical devices. As finely engineered as they are, they can still fail, and they have failed. Both of the guns will. Nothing's perfect. Things break. That's just the way it goes. It sucks, but that's life. But that being said, you're not going to get any better designs than these two pistols, at least not as of 2008. I really don't see how you can engineer more reliability than these two guns. They wrote the book on reliability. They're as reliable pretty much as a revolver. And by the way, revolvers are not 100% reliable. You can get some timing problems as a cylinder rotates, and they can jam on you. But if I had to make a call, and this is a very hard call to make because both of these designs, of course, are just unfailingly pretty close, unfailingly reliable. Both the Sig and the Glock, they're just awesome. But if I had to make a choice, and plug your ears, Glock, I would give the reliability score slightly edge Sig, and that's based on my own personal experience. Enough said. How about accuracy? These guns are both supremely accurate. I'm going to call it a draw. What do you know? It's a draw. I mean, I shoot both of the guns equally well when I'm practiced. And you might have seen my desert clinic shooting of the 226, and I'll tell you right now, I wasn't happy with it. My standard shooting of the 226 looks something like this. This is a target that dates back to 1990. Not this 226, but it's a 226, and this is how I'm shooting it at 15 yards. Why do I keep targets? Well, lo and behold, glad I did, because I never knew I'd be running a video thing, review. But here you see the date on it. Yeah, I've covered some important information up that I don't want you to see. But 8 rounds, Blazer 115J, or 115 grain FMJs. Same stuff I was shooting in the desert the other day, by the way. December 1990. That's a pretty good group. 15 yards. I think I was standing, too. That's Sig accuracy. Here's another one. Sig 226, October 1990. Not too bad, not perfect. And just so you know, I have no reason to try to purport myself to something I'm not. I'll never do that. I'm going to show you another target that ain't so great. But this gives you an indication of what the gun's capable of if you've practiced with it. And I'm not talking me, I'm just talking anybody, pretty much. If they have good breathing control and trigger control, they can do this. Pretty much all it is. And grip and stance, those things too. Here's one that's not so great, but I kept it because this is 1990 as well. Me and my buds were going out shooting SIGs back then, a long time ago. 25 yards. By the way, 25 yards is hard to hit your target at 25 yards. If you don't believe me, you go do it. Tell me how it turns out for you. Now this one, we had like a 15 knot crosswind, and that's why I said it. You can see, yeah, I guess slight wind. Okay, I exaggerated slightly. But there was a wind left to right, and that's where they were placing. But that being said, I still sucked, because that group is horrible, at least in my opinion. It should, a Sig 226 easily at 25 yards should be able to keep all the rounds within the nine circle of this particular target. Kind of like this. That's what I'm talking about. And this was me, again, shooting a SIG. This one was at 20 yards. FMJs. That's what you can expect from a SIG. And to me, at 20 yards, I'm very happy with that. Here I got another one. Hope I'm not boring you. This thing's all shot up. Got the crap shot out of it. That's because me and my bud were using a bunch of different guns. By the way, check out this group that I did with a Browning high power. I wish I would have added that to my review series of the reliable automatic pistols, because that's a Browning high power. That was his gun. And man, that thing was accurate. That was at, I believe, 15 yards, shooting that Browning high power. Date on that's December 1996, by the way. Here's a Sig 226 shooting reloads, 15 yards. That's pretty good. There's 7 rounds, Sig 226. I think that's the same yardage. Here's a Glock 26. I'll do a review on that in the future. Don't bug me about it. Trust me, it's coming. I mention a gun and I get like 100 emails. Dude, when's that coming out? It's coming. I'm amazed I'm able to put out what I put out with my jobs. 9 rounds, Sig 226 reloads. There's my flyer there. That wasn't too great. But you know what? A flyer to me does not make a bad group. If you're blowing a single hole like that, that's pretty darn good. I mean, and I'm not showing this again to show that I'm like some super stud. There's a lot of people who shoot better than me. Pretty much everyone, in my opinion. But the SIG is just amazingly accurate. It just rocks. It rocks. So, now, the Glock is no slouch either. And I should have shown you some of my targets with the Glock. I'll do it maybe in the Glock 19 or 26 reviews. But I'm going to still stick with the fact that these guns are pretty much on par for accuracy. I really cannot pick one or the other, so I'm calling that a draw. Draw. Ergonomics. Put Mr. Glock off on the side. And ergonomics, I'm going to just tell you flat out, the SIG wins. It's just extremely ergonomic. In fact, there's very few pistols that match the capability of a Sig as far as ergonomics go. Remember I talked about weight and how it doesn't feel like it's a 32 ounce or 2-pound pistol? That's true. It's just ergonomic. Now, it depends on your hand too. I realize that. Maybe your hand is not as large as mine. Hey, if you're, a female viewer and you're watching, the Sig 226 is probably going to be a little bit on the big side. Most female officers in law enforcement do not like the 226. They much prefer maybe a 228 and maybe even the 239. So it's not a one size fits all, that's for sure. It's not. But the grip angle, very 1911-ish. The overall feel and width of the grip is just excellent in the 226. It comes to hand nicely. It points naturally. It feels good. There's no rough edges. It just fits. And that's what you'll hear from thousands and thousands of Sig owners. People who own Sigs will always say it just feels right in hand. Now, does that mean I'm saying the Glock 17, it's competition? Double check that. Usually when I'm handling a Glock, by the way, I like to see that trigger in the most rearward position. That means I do not have a loaded round in the chamber. And that's why you saw me do what I just did. I just chamber check it, safe direction. I like it in the back, generally speaking. But getting back to the Glock, it is ergonomic too. I like it. However, when I handle both of them side by side, I shoot both of them side by side. If I have to make a call, and that's what we're talking about, is Nutnfancy's call on these points, I'm going to give advantage Sig because I think it is more ergonomic. I like the grip angle a little bit better. It's not quite as racked as a Glock's grip. You can see the differences in the angle when I attempt to line up the slides. This is more of a vertical angle. This is more of a angular angle, more Lugerish, so to speak. I shoot both well. I like them both. I'm big fans of both, but if given a choice, I'm going to side with ergonomics on the side of Sig, handle-wise. Now, let's talk about the other controls. I also think Sig is a huge, well, let me just say this. I love the way the Sig controls are mounted. Now, granted, and we'll get to this in just a sec, the simplicity, we have more levers and stuff hanging off the side. In fact, I'm just going to talk to it now. Than we do the Glock. The Glock has what? A slide stop lever right there. Does not have a hammer drop right there because it's a striker fired pistol. The hammer is internal. We don't have an external hammer, this thing right here, in a Glock. It's contained within, striker fired. Now some people say, hey, I much prefer the Sig because it gives me a double tap option. I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and put my snap cap in so I can dry fire the Sig, because I do not like dry firing Sigs, nor do they recommend it. So what I have here is an aluminum snap cap. It's an inert dummy round. I put that in a magazine. You always got to load it from the magazine. You don't just throw it in there unless you want your extractor to get all bunged up. Now we're ready to dry fire in the Sig. Now, as I crack the hammer back here, this is a dedicated hammer drop for the Sig. And you know what? It's extremely functional. I love it. And it's very intuitive. If you shoot Sigs for any length of time, and you'll see me doing this, I just have a habit, boom, 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 boom. Glock's back, sweep it. I just do it. I never leave my trigger on a Sig in the most rearward position. I just don't. It's stupid. Because this is such a light trigger. If I just barely touch it, bam, I pop around. And there's been police officers who've had ADs, i.e. accidental discharges, by not doing that. That they had their finger on the trigger, and lo and behold, they ended up shooting a guy they didn't want to shoot because they didn't adhere to that. And another thing they didn't adhere to, and that's keeping your finger out of the trigger guard unless you're ready to shoot. Your finger should never be in the trigger guard unless you're on target, ready to go. And I'm talking like really on target. I'm not talking about coming out of your holster ready to go. I mean, because if you somehow have that in single action, you're bringing your holster up, bam, it's real easy to crack a round off. And that's what I was talking about in the desert, about guys at ranges. They've done that because they get all stressed out and they shake and they're not thinking clearly. Next thing you know, they put their finger in the trigger, bam! Round goes off and someone dies. That crap happens all the time. But it gets back to consistent, incredible training. That's into part whatever it is. Here comes the next one. Stay tuned, Nutnfancy.